I'm quite happy to be here and to discuss on the consolidation of the French defense industry. And I'm glad to be there with three key speakers in the French environment, in the French defense and aerospace environment. First, I will shortly introduce our three speakers, but I will let them to explain more deeply what they are doing. First, on your left, it's Lionel Mestre, who is a partner of Weinberg Capital Partners, but also he's heading the private equity fund RNE, the well-known defense private equity fund that has been created 2 years ago. Also, we are glad to have on the floor Nicolas Tixier, who is an associate of Grant Thornton, but also is the leader of the practice concerning aerospace and defense of Grant Thornton. And also Jean Soleil, who is CEO of Elangso. Elangso is a company dealing with optronics and mechanics for aerospace and defense. So the purpose of the conference is to discuss on the global environment of M&A in aerospace and defense. First, I will introduce the situation and with an overall view of the defense sector in the world. After, we will focus on the situation in the French market, and thereafter we will review all the constraints of making consolidation in France. So concerning the worldwide aerospace and defense market, what is interesting to note is that there has been a significant amount of transaction over the last 6 years. If the number of transactions has significantly increased compared a decade ago, where the number of transactions was below 200, but over the last 6 years, the transactions were above 350 transactions concerning aerospace and defense in the world. I'm just mentioning the number of transactions, not the value of the transaction, but it's more interesting to see the deal flow we have in the industry. There is a small decline in 2020, but as you know and you are aware, it was the year of the COVID, so that has slightly decreased the number of transactions of this year. But without this impact, we can see that there has been over 400 transactions year by year, except last year in 2023, where we have experienced a significant decline. And you can see from 2021 to 2023, there has been a sharp decline in transaction, a decline of roughly 60%. So the trend at the worldwide level has been slightly declining, and as it has been experienced in the other industry. So defense was more or less in line with the remaining of the industry. If we focus on the last quarter, we can see, and there we have also the value. So the value is fully impacted by the largest transaction, so it's not necessarily relevant. But you can see that it has been a consistent decline from more than 100 a quarter, for example, in last quarter 2022, to a level not higher than 49 transactions at the end of last year. So it has been a significant impact on the merger and acquisitions. And also in value, it has declined by roughly 10 billion euros in terms of value of transaction in defense and aerospace. Let's switch now to the trend in the French market. And there we can see that it's a different situation where the market has been significantly increasing over the year from 2016 to 2023 last year. And with a consistent increase of number of transactions, and also if we see this week what happened, there has been 3 transactions during this week that has been announced this week, so it remains at a very high level. We are roughly just below 70 transactions a year. It's roughly in line with the last quarter in 2024. So it's remained now at a peak level. It's not growing anymore, but it remains at a high level in France. What is interesting also here is to see that historically the aerospace sector was roughly at more than 50% of the transaction, the volume of transaction. We see that the part of aerospace has declined over the year as a percentage of the total number of transactions. But also we have seen the increase of new sector, for example, some space, some cybersecurity, and the number of transactions are growing in those areas. If we see quarters by quarters, we can see, and as I mentioned it, the level of transaction remain high in 2024 because we reached the same level of transaction compared to 2023 at a 2023 transaction. We don't mention the value, just focusing on volume because it's more relevant to see the deal flow. But we have also some significant transaction in terms of size. If we can see in the last quarter the IPO of Exosense, the project of acquisition of Preligence by Safran. So it's some sizable transaction also in the French market. In the other hand, and we have seen also a slight reduction in terms of valuation. There are lots of assets that are on the market. There is a pressure also related to the interest rate. So the global valuation are slightly declining compared to what we experienced a couple of years ago. We can see, and we will discuss it with Lionel, that currently the part of transaction involving private equity funds is probably at the lowest we have seen over the last 5 years. So it's also related to the increase of the interest rate. In terms of average multiple in defense and aerospace, from our database, we are roughly at 8.7, the EBITDA, so it's more or less consistent with the other sector of the industry. The overall amount of value, it's 8 billion euros, so it's a sizable market. The larger group, in terms of value, reflects 87%, but in terms of number of transactions, it's fairly low. But we had a lot of high transaction, especially with Thales and Safran last year, that had a very high value in terms of transaction. The share of private equity last year was 17% of the transaction involving a private equity fund, compared to roughly 1/3 of the transaction in the last decade. What is interesting is there is not a lot of appetite concerning the IPO. There has been only one IPO over the last 5 years, and it was last quarter with Exosense. We have several companies that has exit from the market, but it's the first time that one company dealing with aerospace and defense is entering into the market. So it's interesting news. And also the number of transactions, and we have seen it has significantly increased compared to the past. Just to go fast, defense is not comparable to the other industry. Doing M&A in defense is quite specific. There is a lot of issues you have to deal with. It's not like selling yogurts. It's rather more complicated, and also because there are lots of clearance you have to take into account some foreign investment regulation that enter into account as well. So that's very specific, and it makes it a very specific market. Also, the question of sovereignty is also important, and for example, we have seen with the situation of Photonis, we have seen with the case of another company last year that were not allowed to change ownership just related to foreign investors. Also, it's interesting to see that the French state is playing a key role, and for example, Difinvest is investing now in more than 30 different. He has stake in more than 30 stake in France, and also, as we mentioned it before, there is some strong increase in terms of cybersecurity and space that has increased over the last 2-3 years. What I want to conclude, and before letting the floor to our speakers, is just to present the situation of the French defense industry. So it's what I call the hourglass syndrome. So we have 8 very, very large companies having a significant share of the overall consolidated revenue. The big 8, it's Airbus, Safran, Thales, Dassault, Ariane Group, Nexter, Naval, MBDA, and all together they represent roughly 2/3 of the overall revenue of the industry. What is also interesting is that at the bottom we have a lot of very small companies, roughly more than 4,000, what's called BITD in French, and that reflects roughly 25% of the overall value consolidated revenue of the industry. But what is a critical problem in France is the absence, the lack of mid-sized company between 200 and 2 billion euro revenue, and that those companies generally are making acquisition and are consolidating the industry. And in France, it's very difficult to consolidate the industry because of the lack of these mid-sized company. So it's not easy for small company to merge together. It's not French company doesn't like to merge. It's not very familiar with. It's difficult to enter and to float and to go to the market. They don't have enough money to acquire them. And the large company are already oversized, and except Safran, most of them doesn't want to acquire small French company. So it's a situation that it's difficult to move, it's difficult to change because of the situation of the French industry. Okay, that's the situation, and it's reduced the ability to the industry to drastically change from the situation we have and we had 10 years ago, and it's reduced the volume of the transaction compared to other countries, for example, the US or the UK. So this being said, I suggest to first open the discussion with our expert, and after probably to let the floor to some question, if any. Okay? I would like perhaps to start with Nicolas. Nicolas is at the head of the transaction service of Grant Thornton. He is a lead practice of aerospace and defense, and he knows very well the sector. He's involved in many transactions. So you have an excellent view, and in advance to other, of the deal flow and what are the current trends of the French industry, and what is currently your view on the French market?
So thank you, Cyril, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. So as Cyril mentioned, I'm the head of transaction advisory services for Grant Thornton here in France. And so my day-to-day business is to assist my clients either selling or divesting their business. mainly in the aerospace and defense sector. So as Cyril mentioned in his overview of the sector, there should be distinction within the sector between the different business. So aerospace is leading, starting the consolidation earlier, and driven in the past by a dual approach, which is civil and defense. So I think there's two things to keep in mind. So first, I would say that the good news for me and for Lionel probably, there's a huge potential of acquisition and consolidation here in France with a number of companies with experience, technical know-how. So a lot of opportunity, first. Second, we need to distinguish once again within the sector between cyber, space, aerospace, ground. The dynamic is not exactly the same, and the needs of these companies are not exactly the same. When you consider a startup in the new space, it's a little bit different than a family business with a technical ability in the electronic or mechanics. So once again, there's no one single sector. We should keep this in mind. Having said that, there's an overall dynamic with the overall geopolitical situation that you all know. So the sector has a number of opportunities in terms of business, of market share, but to address it, there's a need for consolidation, and we observe a dynamic here on this consolidation trend. And I don't know, but probably, Lionel, you will be happy to comment on this. Private equity funds are definitely one option to drive this consolidation.
Lionel, do you want to comment on this topic? What is your view on the current evolution of the market and the current situation of the M&A? Do you see that there is more company to acquisition, or there are probably less than 1 year ago? What is your anticipation of the view on the market?
Yes, thank you, Cyril. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Cyril, for your invitation. I will ask your question, with facts that we have observed for 1.5 years now. Maybe first a few words on Wimber Capital Partners. Wimber Capital Partners is a management company with over 1.5 billion euros of assets under management, with basically 5 strategies: LBO, real estate, impact investing, listed shares, and the latest one I'm heading with a team of 5 persons is the RNA Fund, which is the only fund in France and in Europe totally dedicated to the defense and security market. We have a strategy focused on LBO transactions, so a majority transactions on companies from 30 million up to 100 million of revenues. And we are active on all areas of the defense and the security, i.e. land, aerospace, marine, as well as in the security, in identification, detection, protection of strategic sites, NRBC, and so on and so forth. We, as you said earlier, Cyril, as defense is a very specific sector with specific people, with specific technologies, we made the decision to do a specific fund with engineers. We have engineers in the and especially one ingénieur de l'armement who is currently at the salon. And we are, sorry, I lost my idea. Yes, donc focusing on all the value chain of the defense and security sectors, i.e. services, systems, subsystems, equipment, cyber, and so on and so forth. Basically, the idea of this fund was born in 2020, donc before the Ukraine issue, and this idea rests on 4 pillars. First, defense is important, and in 2020, when we raised this idea in front of the financial industry, we were looked at as we were Martians. It was really the case. Second, we have a fantastic industry in France, fantastic technologies. We are now ranking number 2 in terms of exports in the world, second exporter in the world for this kind of in this industry. It's a growing industry, not only because of LPM, but at that time it was already growing because of export to countries that were raising their military spending. It is a dual industry, so it contributes to reduce the risk to be specifically exposed to only one sector. When you work for the defense industry, you can work for security, you can work for medical, electronics, and so on and so forth. And the cherry in the cake is it's a very fragmented market. So you have plenty of consolidation, build-up strategies to be taught, and I'll come on that in a minute. So I'm going to talk about that now. First, facts. A fragmented market. Why is this market fragmented? What we anticipated is truly the reality that we see today. All these companies in the BITD, most of these companies have been founded by engineers that have a lot of ego, and it's not a criticism. So this ego prevented them from creating bigger players in the industry. So now the result of that is that these founders are almost at the edge to retire. So they will dispose, they will sell their business. There is a risk of predation. And we are, one of the financials, independent and neutral financial investor, able to conduct a build-up strategy with them. Second point is the fact that when a founder decides to sell its business, the first idea is, I'm going to sell that to a trade or to an industrial buyer. Why is that? First, because I think, and we see that investment funds are very unpopular outside Paris and even inside Paris. Second, the defense sector, there is a lack of culture, a lack of knowledge of the financial sponsors and the banks and insurance company in that sector. So an approach to buy for an investment to buy a company in the defense is so as purely opportunistic. And the fact to have created a sectorial fund gives us a real edge in this industry. First, you can appear for these funders with a kind of genuine motivation to buy the business and with a good knowledge. Second, it guarantees the fact that you have a level of interaction that is specialist talking with specialists, which is very important for them. And the third advantage is the fact that sorry, it's a little bit noisy. Is the fact that you can change their perspective, i.e., they first have in mind to sell their business to a bigger trade that would dilute his company their company in a bigger group, and we offer them the opportunity to be the consolidator of their sector and to remain independent and be the player to consolidate the business. So it's a total change of perspective for them. Third fact, why is this industry specific? And I've been working for other industries, so I can see the comparison. In our business, we said that we are looking at a lot of primary business, i.e. companies with no financial sponsors in the equity yet. And it's true that when you look at a primary deal, you know that you will have work to be done, structuring work to be done on finance, on IT, HR, and so on and so forth. But defense is all that plus commerce. As these companies have been created by engineers that have in mind excellence in the product, excellence in performance, they did not really need any commercial department to sell their product. And there is a huge room to improve and to accelerate growth if you structure a commercial department. So that's what we are doing, both at company level and at the board level, where we generally appoint a board member that has the capacity, the ability to open doors with other clients, both at France level and Europe level. And maybe four, and I will stop there. I'm sorry, it's not a criticism to you, Cyril, but it's true that M&A processes are usually focused to find a trade or an industrial acquirer, and then marketing is quite poor in these M&A processes. The documentation you receive, the memos, the data room, there is very few information. And for an investment fund, a financial sponsor, it's very difficult to understand the products, the technologies, uses of cases, and so on and so forth. So there is a huge amount of work to be done to improve marketing around these fantastic companies. And that, keeping in mind that in the finance industry in general has a very poor knowledge of the defense sector compared to other sectors.
Thank you very much, Lionel. Probably, Jean, would you mind to just give your view concerning the situation of the defense industry and the M&A market in France as part of a small company, and your view, and you are also trying to make some consolidation of your industry because it's part also of the war economy we are mentioning, and the customer want a larger player. And I think you have a good track record in this situation. So I'm interested to hear you on this point. Do you have a...
Thank you, Cyril. Maybe I will just start by introducing the company. So I'm the CEO of Elingso. Elingso is a quite old company because we have today a bit more than 30 years old. So we are specializing in design, manufacturing, and maintenance of optronic products. Optronics, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, is assemblies composed of optics, mechanics, electronic boards, and software. So it's very, very technical subjects. And with that, you can build anything related to vision, observation, surveillance, aiming, etc., etc. So many kind of applications in the defense sector, but not only, also in the for the civilian markets and different industries where you need precision, when you need to align things, etc., etc. So including laboratories activities. So we are specializing in this for more than 30 years. We are around 30 people, and we are around 5 million euros turnover, so it's a very small company, I would say. In Cyril drawing at the back, we are clearly at the bottom of the ladder, and this is not very simple every day to be at the bottom of the ladder. So one of the key aspects in the defense sector for me is the the fact that all the cycles, the time is very long, everything is very long. So everybody is talking about the defense economy, the fact that we have to produce very much quicker, etc. But the reality is that everything is very long. When like us, when you are working with large companies, everything takes time to be referenced with the key players, the main players. You often may wait for maybe 1 year, 2 years before to start something. So everything is long, and as everything is long, and when you are small like us, it's very difficult to be attractive for financial players, because when they arrive in a company like us, they expect to have a return on investment by maybe 5, maybe 7 years, and 5-7 years in the defense industry is quite short. So this question of time is key for me and we have to address it by being able to have some financial actors that are interesting by investing in companies for a long time. So time is a very important aspect. So when I've said that, the one possibility to grow, and I'm doing this for several years now. One possibility to grow is to make external growth. So it's much quicker than to make only internal growth and to wait for the market, etc. Because the markets are very long. So everything is long, so the external growth is one key aspect. But once again, when you are small, sometimes you can do it on your own. I already done that in 2019 by buying one company which was one of our supplier. But I've been lucky to be able to do that once. But sometimes you cannot do it on your own, and you have to find some financing, and equity is absolutely key in that kind of transaction and in this domain. And so once again, we have to find. It's very, very important for the defense industry and for small companies like mine. It's very important to be able to find, maybe one day, some financial players that can and which are really interested in investing in small business to build something bigger, but starting by something small, and where time is very important.
Okay, life cycle is indeed very important, but also the timing of a transaction, also in defense, take a lot of time. I have, and we have all experience of transaction lasting more than 2 years. So it has to be taken into account the duration of the process, of the M&A process in defense. If we keep in mind that, for example, in Eurosatory, there is roughly, here as exponent, there is roughly 650 companies, French companies. I'm aware of at least 50 that are currently for sale or with an ongoing process, or that will make a sale process in the last 16 months. So clearly, there are a lot of companies that have those issue of transmission, because we have a lot of owners that are roughly over 60. So there is a significant amount of companies that are on the market or could have been on the market for at least 1 year. And as a result of that, for example, Lionel, do you see some opportunities for you to take benefit of that, to consolidate the industry, or is there some constraint that prevent you to consolidate the current asset you have?
I mean, you have constraints related to authorizations that you have to obtain from the French state, to be simple. But to be honest, I mean, the strategy that we have, the constraint that we introduced in our agreement with our trustee is that we will not buy companies that are too strategic for the for France, because otherwise you can be blocked when you want to exit. So we will not go there. The limits we can have, and that was in one of your slides, is that there are a lot of very small companies that want to be disposed of. And we, considering the size of our fund, we should have 200 million euros under management by the end of this year. You have to invest in companies that are at least to be valued around 30 million euros. So you miss a lot of targets available here, I would say. You clearly, we need to get bigger platform. But what you can do afterward is we can buy smaller companies in the context of our build-up strategies. So far, we have just one participation, just one company in our portfolio. We are at the beginning. We have signed an agreement to buy a second one, an exclusivity, but it's not done yet. And therefore, we will be more agile to acquire for these platforms smaller companies.
And Nicolas, what is with your experience, how do you consider the market being currently? Do you anticipate a further increase? Do you consider it will remain flat? What is your view on the...
Well, I think it all depends on Lionel and how fast he will invest. But no kidding. I think that for the reason you mentioned, there's a need for consolidation. There's two drivers. Those companies are for sale. There's a need in terms of consolidation in the context that we describe, war economy, consolidation, preservation of technology know-how. There's a need for this consolidation. So I would anticipate this to increase in the coming months, years. With a number of new potential investors. Lionel Vanberg Capital have been anticipating this trend, I think. We have to keep in mind that for all, once again, geopolitical reasons that we know, it's no longer or less a problem to invest in defense. It could have been for some investors, some financial institution in the past. So we observe, and you have all heard the Ministry of Defense that has threatened to name and shame some French banks who doesn't want to finance these companies because they were in the defense. So something has changed, and so it should. I think it's creating a new dynamic here. And second, maybe on what has been said on life cycle and profitability, which is essential for a financial investor. What I observe is that pure defense companies, it's more difficult for them to find the right investor because they are 100% defense. And when you are defense, you are exposed to government orders. And we all know that. We all know the LPM, and we all know how the LPM is really executed. So there's a time lag, and the money is not always there, and you are too dependent from one or two customers. The companies I observe who have a faster transaction cycle are those who have a dual technology, dual product, something that you can use in the civilian market with high-end technology, so something who has a real value. And this make a difference. And this is also the ability when you can go to a civilian market, which is potentially less constrained in terms of rules, of export controls, with a wider market, to have a higher volume, a better profitability, who could finance your development technology and keep moving on the defense, because defense is also very needs a very high level of technology, of quality, and those both markets they feed each other. So you can finance your development with civil market and have a very good and technical product in the civilian markets thanks to your defense development. But then, in a nutshell, I think that there's a dynamic here, and I would expect a number of companies to be on the market and to consolidate.
Thank you very much, Nicolas. Just one question, Jean. You mentioned the fact that you were on the bottom of the hourglass, and what prevents you to be on the mid-sized company? You mentioned the fact that it was a financing, but what is the problem? Is it more related to indebtedness, or is it related to capital increase, to find other partner, to find the right company? What are at stake for you?
Oh, it's the equity issue. It's only the equity issue. I have no. It's my experience, so it maybe not be the one for everybody. But my experience is that the French banking system is not a problem. For me, it's not a problem. Our banks are very likely to finance the operations, etc. So I have really no issue with the banks. But the issue for me is to find money to buy companies and to implement this build-up strategy. So funds like the one of Lionel probably is one very, very good answer for that. But one fund in France will not be enough. so if somebody here has some money to invest, it would be good to have some more actors with this kind of behavior and understanding of the defense market, because we really need that. One aspect which my colleagues have talked about is also the fact that when you look at, for instance, for us, if you look at the last maybe 5 or 10 years, you will see a very changeable situation in our top 10 clients, for instance. So this is something everybody looks at when you're dealing with an acquisition. So if you make the table with the top 10 clients, for us it will be very changeable from 1 year to another. 1 year you have 2 main customers, the other are 2 others, etc. And this is very difficult to this is not understandable for many financial actors. So it's important for us to see to have some people like Lionel and his team who are able to really to understand that and understand that the defense market and the defense operations are not like others, and this company will not look like other companies, and it's not risky, because if you put your head over the situation and look at the 10 or maybe 20 years for us, or 30 years back, you will see that everything is going well, the company is growing, and you have no real issue by having some change, many important change in your customer from 1 year to another.
Yes, maybe one word. It's really bizarre, because one of the arguments that banks, insurance companies, financial institutions in general tells you when they want to avoid investing in our fund, for example, is that it's not in line with the ESG rules, which is quite curious, because generally the first speech, our first argument is to say that there is no ESG without defense. Defense is a condition of ESG. So 2 years ago, they were still telling us that we were doing provocation. But it's true. Look at Ukraine. It's true. That fact number one. Fact number two is that there is nothing in external or internal rules at financial institution level that prevent them from investing in defense. It's just you have to respect treaties signed by France, and you have to avoid prohibited weapons. That's it. So it's purely ideology, and we don't do that. And it's also a very strong, a very deep. Sorry, it's a lack of knowledge of the sector, because nobody has been really invested in private equity in the defense for 30 years now. So you don't know that market. And its structure, but when you dig into it, you have fantastic opportunities. And so our conviction, when we raise that fund, is that other private equity firms, generalist private equity firms, will invest in defense in 5 years from now, because today there is a kind of déséquilibre of offre-demande in the private equity industry. Everybody wants to invest in healthcare, in tech, in insurance brokerage, and so on and so forth. And defense is a real path for diversification. And the people that have invested in our fund tell us, well, I like the idea. I know there is an opportunity for growth, for profitability, build up. And you offer a diversification that nobody offers. So I think it's a very, the coming years will be important for the development of the defense industry in the private equity.
Thank you, Lionel. Probably just address in a couple of words the question of valuation in the defense and aerospace. As we have seen, if we take the hourglass syndrome, there are the mid-sized company. It's a scarcity situation because there are not a lot of company, and they trade at a very high multiple. And also we have the bottom that have probably a very, very significantly lower valuation in terms of multiples. Are you experiencing this trend, Nicolas? And what is your view on valuation? And will it increase, will it decline, or will it remain very balanced between small and mid-sized company?
Well, so quite a difficult question on the trend. But on what I observe, once again, back to what is the sector made of? Within the sector, you have different type of company. You have very technological companies, cyber. You are more on the software tech valuation end. When you have more industrial companies, which have not necessarily a different valuation from other industrial companies in other sectors. You are looking at industry here. What makes the difference for them is maybe the type of market, product, and clients that could give a higher value compared to a low-end industry. But in terms of valuation, there are subsectors that we should consider when we look at the overall trend. And having said that, what I observe is that, so except for very specific companies and context, the overall trend in terms of valuation is consistent with the rest of the market, other industry, I mean.
Perhaps, is there some question people who want to raise some question to our speaker? Is there some question, or I have plenty of questions, so it's not an issue. But if you want to address one question, you have the opportunity to do it. 1, 2, 3. So I will continue with Jean. Now, do you believe that there are lots of companies that could be merged, and why don't we have some small companies that are not merging together? Of course, there is the shareholding issue, but it's an easy way to making growth between two small corporate, and why in France it's not very common practice.
I don't know why in France, but yes, of course, it's a very good option when you want to make the first step before to be able to make the step after. And for us, this is probably the next operation I will do will be that, because today, as I was saying before, we are still too small to be attractive for financial actors. So the first step is to make maybe one or two build-ups with two other small companies, and then to be able to access to the next level and to be able to be attractive for financial actors to reach maybe I don't know, maybe 50 million euros turnover. That's the first step will be 10 for me, and then only by reaching 10 million euros turnover, we will be attractive, and then the financial market can help us to get to the next level.
Thank you, Jean. Probably, do you want to?
Yeah, maybe Cyril, one word, and under Jean's control, because he's operating the business on a day-to-day basis. But once again, from what I observe, the risk is when you have such merger between small companies, is the execution, the integration. And I have experienced some group who have grown from when you look at it, they have increased the turnover from 10 to 15 million, but never really integrated the companies. And so there's no value creation there. And why haven't they done that? Sometimes because they didn't know really how to do it. And generally, it's just because when you are operating the business, you don't have real time and money and team size to make this integration, which is a real job on top of what you already do. So I don't know, Jean, what's your feeling on this, but.
I completely agree with you. The first that's what I did the last years. The first thing you have to do is to be structured and to hire the good people to be able to integrate those companies. As you said, is probably the key aspect of the subject. I'm totally agree with you.
Okay, probably a last question for Lionel. So we are happy to hear that you were making another acquisition, but compared to the overall private equity in the defense sector, we have seen that last year it has slightly decreased compared to the previous year. Do you think leverage transaction may be at risk with higher interest rates, or do you think in the past there has been high interest rate and there was some transaction with private equity and they will adapt? What is your view in the future?
Probably interest rates, that's correct, but not only. The key thing is perspectives. I mean, and the political issues we are facing at now will be part of the game, unfortunately. That's a bigger factor of risk in the volume for the M&A. What we observed last year is a very weak market in Q3 and Q4, but in 2004 Q1 is correct. Q2 is very strong. We have a lot of opportunities, either small companies and also larger companies with totaling 50 to 100 million revenues. So the market is strong now, but let's see if political issues can have an impact on the defense market, on the French strategy on that, and on the economic environment.
Okay, I think now it's time to leave the floor. Thank you very much to our speaker. Thank you, Lionel. Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you, Jean. And it was a pleasure to